Yo, what's happening, YouTube fam? This is your boy J Money here, and I'm bringing you guys a three-part video segment, actually, and it has been inspired by another YouTuber known as DZeef. As those of you who watch my channel are probably like 100% sure who that guy is. But anyway, what I want to go ahead and do is, since the video he made yesterday regarding like why a deck like Fur Hire shouldn't be good in the TCG, it really gave me an idea as to what I want to make, and I want to split this up into three different parts. So the first part, we're going to reference a deck like Fur Hire. Now, for those of you who don't know, Fur Hire is a deck to where all the level 4 lower monsters will special summon other Fur Hires from hand, and then when other Fur Hires are special summoned, they get additional effects and all that good stuff. This one being able to add a Fur Hire monster from deck to hand, being able to boost all Fur Hires by 500, being able to pop a face-up card, being able to pop a set card, discarding a Fur Hire and getting a draw, grabbing a Fur Hire from grave to hand, and just excavating cards and just adding more cards to your hand. Now, and obviously we're there is another one called Wiz Sage for Hire, and that is well, this any of the big ones, they don't special summon other Fur Hires, but they get effects immediately when they are special summoned, and they have other on-field effects and all that good stuff. This one, while it's on the field, you can discard a Fur Hire to negate the activation of a monster effect. Wiz is quite the opposite, to where you are negating the activation of a spell or trap card. Now, looking at all these effects, you would think that, hey, this is a nice little formula for a standalone great deck, right? Well, thinking that and seeing how there is a lack of success. Yes, sir. Seeing how there's a lack of success with a deck like this, well, what's the problem? And the problem is that decks like these rely heavily on their normal summon. They don't have enough extenders, if you will. So, what does it mean for a deck to rely on its normal summon? Well, there's two things. One, if the summon gets stopped, or the effect of the monster that you normal summon gets stopped, your turn essentially ends, as he says. Because all these have great effects, are really good when they get going, but they have to get going. But the fact that a deck relies on its first summon to go through, that leaves a deck prone and open to a lot of problems. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and start going through ways that this is my segment that I want to do, how to mitigate. When you build a deck, you identify the weaknesses of the deck, and then you find the best way to mitigate said weaknesses. So for today, I'm going to do how to mitigate the dependency of the normal summon, kind of thing. How to mitigate normal summon reliance. That is what I want to do today, and then the next one is going to be search reliance and just fragile strategies altogether. So we're going to start with Fur Hires. Or we're going to take Fur Hires as an example, because this is a deck I have. This is a deck I want to build, have completely built for Soul Fusion. I plan to play this when Soul Fusion hits the scene. So I want to go ahead and show all of you ways that you can mitigate normal summons. Now again, as I said before, a deck like Fur Hire, again, if you A, stop the normal summon, or B, stop the effect of whatever you're normal summoning, your turn ends. So it doesn't have to just be on normal summon, it can be the effect of the monster you normal summon, it has to go through to boost card advantage. So any sort of disruption, essentially, that will negate effects and all that good stuff, or remove it from the field and all that good stuff. So we're going to start with the most obvious thing, and that is hand traps. We all know any normal summon dependent deck is likely going to need to search and or summon things from the deck to get their plays going. So things like Ash Blossom and Effect Veiler are very, very are very, very problematic. So cards like Called by the Grave are excellent at mitigating that. So if your deck is primarily weak to hand traps, you don't just want to main Called by the Grave, you want to take it a step further and play things like, let's say, 3 Instant Fusion and a Millenniumize Restrict, which essentially does the exact same thing when it comes to shutting down hand traps, except it does require an extra deck slot and all that good stuff. So that is something to take in mind. But you could take it a step even further and play cards like Seravis the Ascendant, because again, normal summon reliant decks don't only suffer to things that negate its effect, it also is prone to things like that will remove it from remove things like this from the field. So things like Effect Veiler and Infinite Impermanence get stopped by something like Seravis. But not only that, but you have things like Widow Anchor that this can turn off. Compulsory evac device can turn stuff like this off. Other monsters like Firewall Dragon, if it's live, can turn this off. This can turn off and all that good stuff. So you want, when it comes to normal summon dependency, you want ways to completely mitigate and just cover your ass. You want as many ways to make sure that that normal summon goes through. But you can, depending on certain matchups, you can also side things like Forbidden Chalice if it's like a responsive effect negation, like let's say a Mythical Beast Jackal or an Ardite Vortex Dragon. That is also something that you may want to consider looking into if your deck relies on the normal summon. So all of these, Millenniumize Restricts, Access, Called by the Graves, Seravis stop targeting, things like Forbidden Chalice to turn off monsters, they're all great ways to help mitigate normal summon dependency. Now, there is another side of the spectrum as well. Not only are hand traps and things like Widow Acres and all that stuff good or effective against decks like these, but back row decks could also be good as well, because with back row, you know, you can expect a card like Beat for higher not to resolve. So, there's the other side of the spectrum, back row removal. Things like Twin Twisters, you know, if you have space to main deck something like this, whether you're playing a deck like Madolche or Beat or even Spiral, because Spiral can sometimes be pretty normal to summon dependent as well. Haste Grenade, if you really want to mass wipe, I would honestly recommend relegating it to the side deck. And obviously, you know, great side deck options like Red Reboot can really come in for you. Not only that, but you could also side against, you know, said back row heavy decks. Let's say if you depend on the normal summon and you are going first, it could be good if you could get your plays off. But, you know, if you're going first, you obviously can't attack, so you still need something against either back row heavy decks or, you know, things alike. Hold on, trucker guys. Alright, I'm back, guys. So anyway, as I was saying, against things like back row heavy decks, you may want to play things to also stun your opponent, even if you know for a fact you're going first. And so we got, first off, we got things like Artifact Sanctums and all that good stuff. If you know you're going first, because cards like Evenly Matched can be a thing, you can have Scythe and Morale Attack. This can be against other combo heavy decks if you know you're going first. And let's say you don't open any of your other ways here to stop your opponent from really counterplaying against your plays. You can play things like these as a measure to counterplay against your opponent, to where you have another shot to go in on your opponent. But there's also things like against back row heavy decks, if you know you're going first, you have to play out your turn 2 at some point. So things like Roll Decree also really come in clutch. Now, there are 2 cards that people would think that I would mention that I didn't, and those are cards like those 2 cards are Denko Sekka and Cyframe Gear Gamma to counter hand traps. Now, why didn't I choose these cards? Why did I not mention these cards? Well, that's because in a deck that relies on its normal summon, a card like Denko needs its normal summon because you can't special summon this card, and so you can't afford to summon a monster like this. Same thing goes with Cypher and Gear Gamma. You would think if your deck is weak to hand traps, playing Gamma would be another option, but the fact remains, if your deck is dependent on its normal summon, then you know your monster is likely already on the field by the time your opponent uses a hand trap, so a card like Cypher and Gear Gamma is useless. So with that being said, guys, I hope I taught you guys something today. I hope you guys learned something in regards to weaknesses of certain decks, because just because a deck has a certain weakness doesn't mean you don't have ways to mitigate that. Mitigating things is what I love doing. It's what I do best, is, you know, when you know something is weak, find ways around it. Like Super Boo says, a good fighter knows his weaknesses, but a great fighter will always find a way around them and all that good stuff. And that's essentially what I'm trying to teach you guys, is how to mitigate. Normal Summon Reliance, yeah, it can be pretty rough, but when you know what you're doing, when you have certain things just already mapped out, you already got avenues and things already put in place, then you should be perfectly fine, good to go, and all that good stuff. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Is there anything that I missed? Let me know. So thank you guys very much for watching. This is J Money, and I am signing out.